Let's make some Chipotle bowls with crispy chicken wings and fried sweet plantains. The first thing you want to do is prepare your rice. So here I am just rinsing my rice. I do this process about 3 times just to make sure my rice is nice and clean. I decided to use white rice today, but you can use brown rice, any kind of rice that you would like to use, or whatever you have on hand. I like to do this just to make sure my rice is clean. Be sure to dump that water out and do that process about 2 to 3 times. Now to measure the water, I usually go to the first line on my knuckle. It works every single time. Here I am turning on the wrong burner. I do that every time I cook. But you want to make sure you cook your rice at like medium heat just so that it can cook and it doesn't cook too fast. So we are making cilantro lime rice, so you want to go ahead and slice up 1 full lime and squeeze all the juice into the rice. Try to get out as much juice as you can. It really brings out the flavor. And I do prefer using fresh limes, but you can use the store-bought lime juice if you would like. Make sure you're rinsing all of your vegetables. Here I have a bunch of cilantro. I only use 1 bunch for this entire meal. I don't de-stem my cilantro. I do cut off like the excess stems, but for the most part I just chop it up with the rest of it. Funny story, I was asking my younger sister what her favorite vegetable is, and she said cilantro. Like, okay, that's like saying your favorite vegetable is parsley. We laugh about it still to this day because it was just hilarious. But you want to make sure that you chop it up. Just take your time doing this so that you don't have big pieces and big chunks of cilantro or the stem in your food. And don't judge how I cut. I've been traumatized by a knife. I did slice my finger last year, so I am really trying my hardest not to do that again. Technically, I'm not a chef. I'm a mom that just enjoys cooking. So once you have that all chopped up, go ahead and add some of that to your rice. I did not do any measurements, so I just did about a small handful. Now cover that and let it cook. Next, we're going to chop up the rest of our cilantro and we're going to set that aside for our pico de gallo and our corn salsa. Now, although this meal is pretty easy to make, it is time consuming because you are doing a lot of chopping up fresh ingredients. I prefer to make these things myself instead of buying the store-bought kind, but there is the store-bought pico de gallo you can get. I'm sure they probably have the corn salsa you can buy as well, but I prefer to just make it myself. Once everything is chopped up, go ahead and put that in a bowl and set that aside. For the protein of choice today, we are going to go ahead and do some chicken wings. I wanted to do something different, and this is what we had, so I went ahead and did some chicken wings. But you can do whatever kind of protein you would like, or you can just leave it out and make it a vegetarian meal. I do prefer cutting my chicken, so that's what I'm doing here. I'm just cutting off those little parts of the wings that nobody eats, and I'm cutting it into party-sized wings. But this step is completely optional. You can definitely leave it as is. When I'm done cutting the wing, I am putting it in a bowl that's sitting in the sink. Make sure you're using a pretty sharp knife because it does make this process a lot easier. Once you're done with all of that, go ahead and add some salt to the chicken. I like to clean my meat. This is how I clean it. This is also optional. I know some people don't like to clean their meat, but this is just what works for us. Make sure the water is cold so you're not low-key pre-cooking your chicken. Here I am just pouring out that water. These are the seasonings I use. I will add all of my ingredients in the description box, so make sure you check that out for the ingredient list and the measurements. Now for the chicken, this is all just preference based. You can add as much or as little as you would like. Once you're done adding your seasonings, go ahead and mix that up. Try to just get it all over the chicken, rub it in, mix it in, all that good stuff. I prefer cooking my chicken in the air fryer, but you can fry it up, you can bake it. However you like to cook your chicken, you can go ahead and cook it that way. This just saves me a lot of time. And here I am just resetting my kitchen, disinfecting everything, cleaning everything down, and washing the dishes that I did use. I prefer to do this because it just helps with the cleanup process and I'm not cross-contaminating anything. This part is probably the most satisfying part to me. I love washing my sink out. I don't know what it is. Now it's time to check on the rice. While your rice is cooking, do not stir it because it will just make it look weird and starchy. This rice turned out perfect. It cooked thoroughly and it is completely done and fluffy. I love some sticky rice. Here I'm just adding a little bit more fresh cilantro and some more lime juice to my rice. And then once I'm done with that, I'm going to cover it and just set it aside, let it rest until everything else is done. So here I used 1 green pepper, 2 jalapeno peppers, 2 poblano peppers, 1 white onion, 1 purple onion, and I have 3 more limes left. I also used 4 Roma tomatoes and a bag of sweet corn. Go ahead and cook your corn according to the bag's instructions. And while that's cooking, we're going to go ahead and dice up our tomatoes. Now, I prefer the Roma tomatoes because it's more tomato and less water, if that makes sense. But honestly, any tomato should do the trick. Once you're done with that, go ahead and put that in a bowl and set that aside so we can cut the rest of our vegetables. So for the pico, I only used about a half of the green pepper and 2 jalapeno peppers. So to be honest, the poblano peppers and the jalapeno peppers look pretty similar. I'm just trying to figure out which ones were which, and I just went with this. I don't know if it's the right one or not, but it worked. The seeds are what makes it spicy, so make sure you take those seeds out, especially if you have kids. Go ahead and add that to the tomato. For the pico, I like to use a white onion, so I used about half of that, and I went ahead and used some magic and diced that up real quick. And then I realized my bowl was too small, so I just added it to a bigger bowl. And make sure you roll your limes out because it helps get more juice out. And make sure you squeeze all the juice you can into the pico de gallo. You can also add some salt and some seasonings if you would like, but I just wanted the fresh taste, so I just left it as is. Don't be afraid to get your hands a little dirty. Go ahead and get in there and mix that all up, and look at all those colors. And next we're going to go ahead and start with our corn salsa. Put that in a bowl, and then we're going to use a purple onion for this, the rest of that green pepper, and then the other 2 peppers. And again, I used some magic and went ahead and diced that up real quick. And then I'm going to add that to the corn mixture. Also, I only used half of that purple onion as well. And then roll out your lime and squeeze the lime juice of that whole entire lime into your bowl. Once you're done with that, go ahead and add the rest of that cilantro to the mixture and give that a good little toss. You can season this if you would like. Again, I chose not to. But once you're done with that, go ahead and set that aside so we can go ahead and fry up some plantains. First, you want to add some oil to your pan, just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. I like to do thin slices because that's what my kids prefer. And then for the other plantain I did chop it up a little thicker because that's what I prefer. These do cook pretty fast. Make sure that your plantain is ripe because the riper it is, the sweeter it is. You don't have to cut it this thin. You can cut them thicker. It's just preference based. But if you do cut it thicker, just know that it does take a little bit longer to cook, but not too long. If you've never had a plantain, it doesn't really taste like a banana. It's kind of like a banana potato mixture. I don't know how to explain it. You just have to try it. Make sure you flip them all onto the other side so that both sides can be crispy. Once I'm done with all the plantains, I do like to toss mine in a little bit of honey. It just adds some extra flavor and it just makes it a little bit sweeter. This is the second plantain. If you can see how thick I cut those, that is how I prefer mine. You should definitely give both a try and let me know down below which one you prefer. And here you have it, homemade chipotle. There's the rice and the chicken. We got the pico, the corn salsa. We topped ours with mozzarella and sour cream, and we used baby spinach instead of lettuce. And then we also used this sauce, and there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this recipe. Let me know down below if you guys end up trying it. See you guys in the next video.